How's it going, everybody? I'm Stella Chung, and this is the Weekly Fix, the show where we round up all the gaming and entertainment headlines you may have missed this week. Starfield is here, and this week we've rounded up the biggest headlines from Bethesda's space opera. From the logic behind 20,000 space potatoes to its immensely successful player count, there's a whole lot to cover. But Starfield isn't the only thing lighting up the headlines this week. We've got the latest on Disney Plus rating their prices again, the future of E3, and a surprise update on Deadpool 3. Let's get to it.
Starfield is now available on PC and as an Xbox Series X and S console exclusive, but some players are really trying to pretend it's on PlayStation 5 as well. From using the DualSense controller to play the game, to creating custom limited edition Starfield PS5s, and even modding in the PlayStation Studios intro, some users have seemingly taken Bethesda's Xbox exclusivity hard. Players can use the PS5's DualSense controller to play Starfield quite easily, of course, since the game is on PC and the DualSense is a fully supported gamepad there. Blarzek on Reddit took the idea one step further by customizing their PS5 and controller to look like a special Starfield edition. The DualSense in particular looks like an official PlayStation version of the real Xbox limited edition gamepad, and the console is fully customized to match. It is a little odd that they now have a PS5 customized for a game they will never play on it. Finally, to really drive the idea home, PC players can now mod in the PlayStation Studios intro into Starfield, so it matches the likes of PS5 console exclusives The Last of Us Part 1 and Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Chachinito on modding website Nexus Mods uploaded the Starfield PlayStation Studios splash screen mod, which replaces actual developer Bethesda's opening, which is a little odd considering that even if it had been released on PS5, it wouldn't have been published by PlayStation Studios unless Sony had acquired Bethesda instead of Microsoft. But hey, nothing wrong with getting imaginative. This mod pairs well with EA Skater's PS5 Icons mod, which replaces Xbox button prompts with PlayStation buttons. Y becomes triangle, RT becomes R2, and so on. Normally, installing mods turns off achievements, so someone modded that out too. Courtesy of creator Brunth on Nexus Mods, the aptly titled Achievement Enabler essentially allows endless meddling without any consequences. So go nuts out there. Sticking with Starfield, development chief Todd Howard had a fun response after an interview asked him why Bethesda hadn't optimized Starfield for PC. The Bloomberg interviewer set up the question by saying they had asked their viewers for questions for Todd, and a big question from many was, why did you not optimize this game for PC? After a brief pause in which Howard looked a little nonplussed and Xbox boss Phil Spencer had a little laugh, he gave an answer that cut to the heart of the issue. We did, it's running great, it is a next-gen PC game. We really do push the technology, so you may need to upgrade your PC for this game, but it's got a lot of great stuff going on in it, and the fans are responding awesome. Now, presumably he meant fans in the enthusiast sense, not the ones for cooling your PC. But either way, if you're having a hard time running Starfield on PC, upgrade your rig. Of course, no game runs flawlessly on all PC configurations. System requirements are designed to give players an idea of what's required before they buy. But Starfield's mostly positive user review rating on Steam suggests the PC version has launched in a good state, which is quite the thing for a Bethesda game. The Microsoft effect, perhaps? There is a lot going on with Starfield at the moment. Its full launch saw over 1 million concurrent players. People are using Starfield's ship creator to recreate famous vessels from the likes of Star Wars, Serenity, and Star Trek, and many hidden references to other games like Skyrim have already been discovered. Savvy speedrunners have even figured out how to complete it in under 3 hours. And finally today, the Entertainment Software Association has said E3 2024 definitely will not take place at the show's traditional home at the Los Angeles Convention Center, casting even more doubt on the future of the event. While the ESA insists a 2024 E3 event may still take place, GI.biz reports the trade body is working on a complete reinvention of E3 for 2025. Events company ReedPop, which operates PAX in the US, partnered with the ESA on E3 2023, but the show never materialized. ReedPop has now walked away from the ESA in what was described as a mutual decision. In June, the Los Angeles Tourism Board of Commissioners served notice E3 2024 and 2025 were canceled. At the time, the ESA said no decision had been made. So time will tell if the ESA can ever get its act together and organize another E3. But nearly 75% of IGN readers say they hope E3 returns someday, myself included.
At more than 6 million players, Starfield is officially Bethesda's biggest game launch of all time. It's a remarkable milestone for the RPG developer, which is also home to established franchises like Fallout, The Elder Scrolls, and Wayne Gretzky Hockey. No, really, look it up. Anyway, Bethesda marked the achievement on X a couple days ago with a thank you to players, reading, "As of this morning, Starfield has already surpassed 6 million players, making it the biggest Bethesda game launch of all time." By comparison, Skyrim managed to sell 3.4 million physical copies across Xbox 360, PS3, and PC 2 days after its launch in 2011. By December, that number had risen to 10 million. Fallout 4, meanwhile, managed to sell 1.2 million copies on Steam within 24 hours of its release, while also breaking Grand Theft Auto 5's Steam concurrence record. However you slice it, Starfield is off to a strong start. Starfield's latest milestone follows the news of it exceeding 1 million concurrent players across all platforms. The sprawling space epic was topping sales charts even before its official launch on September 6th. Game Pass members flocked to the Xbox store to hand over an extra $31.49 simply to play Starfield a few days early. The Premium Edition upgrade was the best-selling item across the US and UK Microsoft stores during that early access period. So the individual sales numbers might be a little tricky when you're tracking early access plus subscriber fees versus just copies sold. But either way, Xbox has a certifiable hit, and a whole lot of people have a cool new game to play. If you're currently exploring Starfield, you'll find all kinds of game help at IGN.com. Moving on, the creator of the viral Steam hit Only Up has pulled the game from the storefront, citing stress. Only Up is a physics-based platformer that went viral in May after high-profile streamers and YouTubers showcased their often futile attempts to make it to the top. In an update on Steam, Only Up's creator described themselves as a solo developer and said the unexpected hit was their first experience of video game development. Only Up is, quote, "a game I did for creativity, to test myself and where I made a lot of mistakes. The game has kept me under a lot of stress all these months. Now I want to put the game behind me." The developer, who published Only Up on Steam under the name SCKR Games, said that they were moving on to their next game, codenamed Kith. The message continues, "What I need now is peace of mind and healing. I plan to take a pause and continue my education in game design, and further with new experience and knowledge to direct my energies to my next game with the working title, Kith. It will be a new experience with a new concept with realism, a completely different genre and setting, and the emphasis is on cinematography. This time, I hope the project will be created by a small team. This is a challenging project on which I want to significantly improve my skills in game design." This isn't the first time Only Up has been pulled from Steam. At the end of June, the game was removed from Valve's platform due to the use of copyrighted assets, but returned a day later with the infringing assets removed. This appears to have been a recurring problem. In an update dated July 5th, the developer said an Anime Girl asset got into the game by mistake, but that they resolved the issue with the asset's creator on friendly terms. But really, who hasn't had an Anime Girl asset make its way into a project by mistake? My expense reports are constantly getting denied because I upload pictures of Rei Ayanami instead of receipts. Anyway, at the time of this recording, Only Up is unavailable to buy from Steam, although its Steam page remains online. The game's title was changed to Not Available, and its developer renamed to Indie Solo Dev. Only Up's mostly positive user review rating and near 13,000 user reviews remain online. And finally, today, a Japanese man has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and fined 1 million yen, around $6,785, after monetizing gameplay videos on YouTube. The nerve. I assure you, we here at IGN would never do such a heinous thing. As reported by Japanese outlet Asahi Shimbun, 53-year-old Shinobu Yoshida was convicted for violating copyright law after uploading the videos without publisher permission. This is the first conviction of its kind in Japan, according to the publication. Yoshida uploaded gameplay videos of visual novel Steins Gate: My Darling's Embrace and other videos summarizing episodes of the Steins Gate and Spy Family anime shows. Monetizing the videos by enabling ads violated a Japanese law that prohibits making money from copyrighted material, according to the Japanese anti-piracy trade group Content Overseas Distribution Association, also known as CODA. CODA said this was a malicious case of posting videos containing content and endings, spoilers, without permission from the rights holders, and unfairly gaining advertisement revenue through copyright infringement. Yoshida admitted to knowing that his actions were illegal, CODA added, but said, "As part of my hobby, I wanted someone to see what I made." The prosecution reportedly said that Yoshida's actions were, quote, "a malicious act that tramples on the effort of content production, as consumers would be less incentivized to spend money on the game or anime episodes after having them spoiled." Frankly, I'm glad that someone is putting a stop to this kind of insidious, parasitic content. Anyway, if you want to know what happens without buying the games, go check out our Ending Explained videos for Final Fantasy XVI and Tears of the Kingdom.
Moving on, the 6 PlayStation Plus extra games due out this month have hit the internet. The ever-reliable Bill Kuhn of Deal Labs revealed September's selection of PS Plus extra games. They are as follows: Nier Replicant, Star Ocean: The Divine Force, 13 Sentinels: Aegis Rim, Civilization 6, Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts 2, and Unpacking. Nier Replicant is the upgraded prequel to Nier Automata. We gave it an 8 out of 10. Unpacking, which is a super cute game, is one of the best indie games of 2021. It's a puzzle game about putting life's bits and bobs in the right place. We gave it an 8 out of 10 as well. 13 Sentinels is also part of the 8 out of 10 club. This RTS adventure has a great story to go along with its visual flair. These 6 games are reportedly supposed to go live September 19th as the first batch following Sony's PS Plus price hike. Earlier this month, Sony raised the price of all of its PS Plus 12-month subscriptions globally across all tiers. And finally today, Gearbox, the US game company behind the Borderlands series, is reportedly up for sale. Reuters reports Gearbox parent company Embracer is weighing its options, one of which is a sale. Apparently, Embracer has received interest from a number of third parties. Neither Embracer nor Gearbox have issued comment. Embattled Embracer is currently undergoing a significant restructuring that has already seen the closure of Volition, the long-running studio behind the Saints Row series. Earlier this year, Embracer announced it would start to close studios and cancel games as a $2 billion deal with Saudi government-funded company Savvy Games Group reportedly fell through at the last moment. Embracer Group has been on an acquisition spree over the past few years, including snapping up Tomb Raider developer Crystal Dynamics and Gearbox, among others. The February 2021 deal to acquire Gearbox valued the company at up to $1.4 billion. Borderlands spin-offs Tiny Tina's Wonderlands and New Tales from the Borderlands both came out last year. Gearbox published the hit looter shooter Remnant 2 this year and is set to publish Blackbird interactive sci-fi real-time strategy game Homeworld 3 at some point in 2024. Eli Roth's Borderlands film heads to theaters next summer, but Gearbox does not currently have any announced games in active development. It's time to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're taking a closer look at the logic behind putting 20,000 potatoes in your ship's cockpit in Starfield, Disney's reasoning behind yet another Disney Plus price hike, and the latest on Deadpool 3. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Weekly Fix. Disney Plus and Hulu are getting a price increase, and we have an update on the status of Deadpool 3 amidst all the strings. But first, Starfield is on everyone's minds, and last week one player went viral after they attempted to stuff 20,000 potatoes into the cockpit of their ship. The results were surprising, and IGN reached out to some developers to get an explanation on how the game was able to render thousands of items at once without exploding. Let's check it out.
Last week, you probably saw that a Starfield player stuffed 20,000 potatoes into their ship's cockpit. The clip went viral with awestruck reactions from players and game developers alike. But we weren't just impressed at the audacity of someone going through all the trouble of gathering that many potatoes. Digital Foundry's John Linneman called the clip mind-blowing because all the potatoes have physics. But what does it mean for something to have physics? We spoke to a number of game developers to get their insight on what's really going on in the potato clip, why more games don't let players do this kind of thing, and whether or not 20,000 tumbling potatoes really is as impressive as it seems. An Unreal Engine developer at Pingle Studio, that's Pingle, not Pringle, it's lunchtime here, named Nikita Luzansky explains, when they say that a game has 60 frames per second, this means that in 1 second, the game engine must process input data from the player, apply it to the game world, calculate the interaction of objects and systems in the game, and render the image on the screen. And it must do all this 60 times a second. When we talk about the physical interaction of objects in the game world, we must always remember that the more objects there are, the more checks the engine must do to get the result of the interaction. But this is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, we want to get the most realistic result, which will require a lot of calculations. But on the other hand, we are limited by the frame rate, because if we go beyond the upper limit, the game will start to slow down, and players don't like that. Because computers operate with time intervals or processor ticks, it's necessary to use multiple algorithms to calculate the movement of an object between those ticks, with each object moving a small distance at each interval depending on factors like acceleration, speed, and possible collisions. Nikita continued, for thousands of objects in one tick, you need to calculate the position of all of them for each pair of objects, check whether they intersect, and if they do, push one out of the other. However, if one object was pushed out of another, then there is no guarantee that when pushed out, it did not end up in another object, so you need to check the intersection between objects several times. Because of this, it turns out that in order to achieve a realistic collision of hundreds and thousands of objects, it is necessary to write code that would work quickly enough and produce a realistic picture in one frame. So basically, more potatoes equals more math per second equals more engine and computer power needed. So we've got 20,000 individual potatoes and a big pile all bumping into one another, the floor, and the moving door. And that's not even accounting for stuff like textures, lighting, audio, and the myriad gameplay systems that make Starfield a massive RPG, not just a potato physics tech demo. But basically, if any of Starfield's calculations are too slow or off in some way, then suddenly the 20,000 potatoes are doing weird, funny physics glitches. And that's where the brilliance of the Starfield clip lies. The potatoes are tumbling gently around like you would expect them to in real life, which gives a whole new meaning to the term potato quality graphics. Moving on, Ubisoft game XDefiant has been denied certification by PlayStation and Xbox. In a written update, producer Mark Rubin said that Ubisoft started the certification process at the end of July. However, in mid-August, Ubisoft found out that the game received a not pass, to which Ubisoft presumably responded, not cool. If it had passed, then XDefiant would have been released at the end of August. Now, Ubisoft has to search for compliances and functionality bugs within the game and fix them so that it can be shipped. Ubisoft plans to submit to first-party platforms for certification again in less than 2 weeks. If the game passes, then it can officially be released by mid to late September. Rubin explains, if we were following the standard rules for game releases, we would have set a date far enough in advance with enough buffer to have a confident release date. However, like a lot of things with this game, we have not chosen the typical route. Having millions of people play your game long before it's ready is not normal. Not being afraid to show an unfinished game to millions of people with all its flaws is not normal. These were real tests and not just marketing events. So, when it comes to when we will release, the real answer is as soon as we can, and we'll continue to update you with more info when we have it. XDefiant is a free-to-play, first-person shooter. It has had several beta phases this year, including a closed one in April and an open one in June. It's coming to PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X and S. In IGN's first closed beta impressions, we said, it's not perfect and definitely requires a lot of major and fine-tuning, but the core gameplay is there and it's fun. It does make you wonder though, with all the buggy games that are released these days, just how bad is XDefiant that Sony and Microsoft went full Gandalf when it comes to certification.
You shall not pass!
Even so, Ubisoft still plans to release this game in under 2 weeks. That really is XDefiant. And finally today, ahead of the launch of the Phantom Liberty expansion and 2.0 update for Cyberpunk 2077, developer CD Projekt has warned PC players to double check that their rigs are up to the task. Lead scene programmer Filip Pierzynski, Polish names are hard, took to X to ask Cyberpunk PC players to check their cooling systems in particular. He said, "We use all that you have, so workload on CPU 90% on 8-core is expected." I hope that means something to PC gamers out there. To save your time, please run Cinebench or similar and check stability of your systems. Cinebench is a free cross-platform test suite that evaluates your computer's hardware capabilities. Cooling systems are a particular concern, as players may hit thermal throttling, which in turn may result in poor performance or even crashes. While Phantom Liberty is a paid expansion, it launches alongside a significant patch that overhauls the base game and therefore means the PC version will become more demanding. Fingers crossed, CDPR optimized everything for the console versions well enough that it doesn't turn them into space heaters. Then again, it is starting to get chilly outside. We'll find out soon enough when Cyberpunk 2.0 and Phantom Liberty launch on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC on September 26th.
Do you like saving money? Well, if so, I have some terrible news for you. The price of Disney Plus and Hulu subscriptions are both officially going up next month. This isn't coming totally out of left field. It was hinted at in an earnings call and officially previously announced, but Hulu subscribers are just now getting an email and in-app notification that these changes are taking effect, and unsurprisingly, nobody is too happy about it. Starting on October 12th, Disney Plus's ad-free price will increase from $10.99 a month to $13.99, and Hulu's ad-free plan will go from $14.99 a month to $17.99 a month. The ad-supported tiers of Hulu and Disney Plus, which are both priced at $7.99 a month, will stay the same for now. Hulu's live TV plan is also affected, and the ad-supported plan is jumping from $69.99 to $76.99, and the ad-free plan is going from $82.99 to $89.99 a month. So yeah, that sucks, and everything continues to get more expensive, but if you're trying to save some money, go follow the IGN Deals X/Twitter account. There are occasionally deals on streaming subscriptions, but you can also find other weird items like hot dog cookers and circus peanuts. You know, just the bare essentials. Speaking of massive media conglomerates doing things to annoy us while making their shareholders richer, David Zaslav, the guy who's been running Warner Bros. Discovery since the merger finalized last year, commented on how the company has been handling some of its most iconic properties like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, and DC, and apparently they're being underused. The Wrap reported that while speaking at the Goldman Sachs Communicopia and Technology Conference, a real event that someone got paid to name, Zaslav stated, quote, "We talk about the great IP that Warner Bros. Owns, but for us, the challenge challenge is that our content, our great IP, Harry Potter, DC, Lord of the Rings, that content has been underused. Now, before you roll your eyes so hard you get dizzy and fall out of your chair, hold on, because it gets worse. Zaslav elaborated, saying, quote, "We haven't done anything with Harry Potter for more than a decade. We haven't done anything with Lord of the Rings. We think there's a lot of shareholder value in attaching a 10-year DC, a real plan around DC, bringing Harry Potter back to HBO for 10 consecutive years, doing multiple movies of Lord of the Rings." Okay, so maybe what Zaslav is saying isn't flat out wrong, but let's break it down a little bit. If you're talking about Harry Potter as in the boy who lived, the character, and then the events that took place in the 7 books and 8 movies that bear his name, then sure, the last thing that WB did on the movie front was the Deathly Hallows Part 2 back in 2011. However, if you're counting the larger Wizarding World Harry Potter universe, give me a break. Since 2016, we got a trilogy of Fantastic Beasts movies, the last of which premiered literally last year. Meanwhile, WB Games published one of the best-selling games this year, Hogwarts Legacy. The 10-year deal that Zaslav mentioned is a new adaptation of the original books that would potentially dedicate a whole season to each volume, which would be cool, unless they leave out Peeves the Poltergeist again, in which case, why even bother? As for DC, that property hasn't been dormant by any stretch of the imagination. Just in terms of feature films theatrically released this calendar year, we've gotten Shazam, Fury of the Gods, The Flash, and Blue Beetle, and Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is still slated for this December, though that could change. Last year, we got The Batman and Black Adam, and we would have gotten Batgirl had it not been relegated to streaming and subsequently canned by Zaslav himself as a tax write-off. Again, this is just on the live-action movie front. There's also a steady stream of direct-to-video animated movies, shows, both live-action and animated, and of course, video games. Oh, and I think DC still makes comics. Now, regarding WB's handling of some DC properties, I could agree with saying they're misused, but underuse really doesn't seem to be the issue here. Lord of the Rings, meanwhile, is another story, and breaking down who owns the rights to what from J.R.R. Tolkien's fantasy universe is harder to explain than the Silmarillion, but TLDR, WB owns the movie rights as well as the rights to make games based on the movies specifically. Amazon got the rights to produce a show, which is why Rings of Power is on Prime Video while the Peter Jackson movies are on Max, and meanwhile, Embracer Group owns the rights to a bunch of other stuff, which is why the Gollum and the Return to Moria games don't actually look like the movies. So yeah, what Zaslav is saying makes sense from a certain point of view, but it's also a little bit concerning for anybody who likes the idea of, I don't know, new ideas. Ironically, it's also completely at odds with Disney CEO Bob Iger's recent statements that suggest taking a quality over quantity approach and admitting that maybe the glut of Marvel and Star Wars shows diluted focus for viewers. What do you think? Are we ready for Tom Bombadil, a Lord of the Rings story? I think we are. I think get Lin-Manuel Miranda to do a Tom Bombadil movie. Okay, so let's say they do make more Lord of the Rings movies. Who's gonna play Gandalf? Well, if Sir Ian McKellen has any say on the matter, probably Sir Ian McKellen. The 84-year-old actor recently spoke to Variety about his plans for retirement, specifically how he doesn't have any. The actor responded, quote, "Retire to do what? I've never been out of work, but I'm aware that any minute now something could happen to me which could prevent me from ever working again. But while the knees hold up and the memory remains intact, why shouldn't I carry on? I really feel like I'm quite good at this acting thing now." So yeah, the real question now is which role will he reprise first? Gandalf, Magneto, or the fan favorite feline Gus the theater cat from Cats? Remember Cats?
Gus is the cat at the theater door.
I know you were trying not to, but I thought I'd remind you.
Director Sean Levy has spoken on the upcoming Deadpool 3 movie, and with it, we know just how far along filming is for the Marvel Studios movie. Speaking of deadline, the director said, quote, "Like the rest of our industry, or at least large swath of it, we're paused. We're halfway through filming Deadpool co-starring Wolverine. Our crew and the rest of us are awaiting a fair and equitable deal that ends these strikes and puts this industry, inclusive of our movie, back at work." Now, the director is referring to the ongoing WGA and SAG-AFTRA strikes that have put countless movies and television shows on pause until a fair deal is met in Hollywood. Now, the strikes have been going on for months now with no clear end in sight. Now, Deadpool 3, however, is still slated to release May 3rd of next year. Now, this will obviously change if an agreement isn't reached soon. Now, as for the DNA of the Deadpool franchise, Levy has assured fans that Deadpool 3 will not change or deviate from what we'd expect, despite being the first in the trilogy to release under the Walt Disney banner. Quote, "Our movie is raw, audacious, very much R-rated, and we went to great lengths to not shoot it on sound stages with digital environments. We wanted something that felt grounded, real." Now, that's definitely reassuring to Marvel fans. Now, let's just hope they're able to get back to work under fair conditions sometime soon. Now, in other news, the Blumhouse horror movie Five Nights at Freddy's has an updated runtime that might shock you. Now, according to the AMC Theaters website, the Blumhouse blockbuster is banking on blowing ticket buyers beyond expectations with a blistering 1 hour and 50-minute runtime. Now, that's almost as long as the first FNAF game if you mainline it. According to the AMC website, the synopsis reads, quote, "The film follows a troubled security guard as he begins working at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. While spending his first night on the job, he realizes the night shift at Freddy's won't be so easy to make it through." Now, pretty much exactly what the first game is about, so makes sense it'd be just as long as the game. A longtime FNAF fans can look forward to the PG-13 movie hitting theaters and streaming October 27th.
I'm Stella Chung, and that was your Weekly Fix. We'll be back here next Saturday with more of the biggest gaming and entertainment news. See you then!